Alright, so let's look at the third example on graphing square root functions. Um, so I'm gonna, I've got about 4 or 5 examples, and I'm doing each example in its own video. Uh, Here's all the problems that I'm working. This problem here, square root of x, that will be the first video. This one is the second example. It has its own video. This one, of course, the third example, that's this video. And then this one would be the fourth video. Okay, so, you can see which one you want to know how to work. I would recommend watching all of them because they're all just a little bit different. Alright, so let's come back over here to the problem we're working. Alright, so the way we're going to do it is we're going to work it using making up an XY table and plotting points. Alright, so we want to pick about 3 points. You can pick more, but 3 is good enough. Alright, so we can choose any number we want except for what makes underneath a square root negative. Because remember, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. So the only thing that we can have under a square root, the number has to be positive or 0. Okay, so if you pick your numbers a certain way, it just makes it easier to graph. Okay, so this is what I usually go by when I choose the numbers. The first number I choose is I look underneath the square root and I say, okay, what makes underneath the square root 0? Okay, well, in this case, well, it's just 0. See, I'm not worried about when I choose the x value, I'm not worried about this 2 right now because it's not underneath the square root. I'm just looking underneath the square root to see what makes underneath the square root 0. And in this case, it's 0. And then once you choose that number, what makes underneath 0, you want to pick 2 numbers larger. Okay, so I'm going to choose 1 and 4. Okay, so let's go over why I chose 1 and 4 instead of maybe 0, 1, and then 2. Okay, why did I not choose the number 2? Okay, well, if we plug 0 in, the square root of 0 is 0. If I plug 1 in, the square root of 1 is 1. If I plug 4 in, the square root of 4 is 2. But if I plug 2 in, the square root of 2, well, that's a decimal. Okay, so, well, you can choose 2, but it's just going to make it more difficult for you to graph. Well, not necessarily more difficult to graph, but it'll make it a little more difficult to plot the points because you're dealing with decimals. Just try to pick numbers where you'll get a perfect square. Alright, so now all we do is we take each x value and plug it in to the function. Alright, so we've got f of x is equal to the square root of 0 plus 2, which is 0 plus 2, which equals 2. And then f of 1 is the square root of 1 plus 2, which equals 1 plus 2. The square root of 1 is 1, and so that's going to give me 3. And then f of 4 is the square root of 4 plus 2, and the square root of 4 is 2 plus 2, and that gives me 4. And so there's my 3 points, the point 0, 2, 1, 3, and 4, 4. And so now, well, we just plot the points. So plot the point 0, 2, which is there. And then plot the point 1, 3. So I'll go over 1, up 3. And then the point 4, 4. So I'll go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's my 3 points. And so I just draw my graph. And it's going to look something like that. Now, the main thing that you have to keep in mind is this graph it does not continue on this way. Okay? Because look, if you say this is a point on the graph, then what you're saying, see, this point here has a value an x value of -1, well, if we plug -1 in, well, what's the square root of -1? It's I. It's an imaginary number. So that tells you the graph does not come this way. Okay, and so this is your graph here. All right, so like I said, check out the other videos. Thanks for watching. Give me a like, share, and subscribe, and that's it.